Okay, so to start things off, I'm going to talk about the movie Iron Man and its significance in the film industry and the superhero industry and just in film itself. Its importance is like in the significance of the eyes of the MCU. It was important for the start of the MCU and it was the first movie out of the 22 movie series that sort of, kicked off a $13 billion or more industry and kind of, kickstarted everything. It was also the start of an era of superhero films when talking in terms of, like I said, the MCU. And also, without Iron Man, the film, there might not be some of these other movies from the, uh, X-Men and like Aquaman, which is like the DCU, I believe. And although the DC has also not done as much as the MCU, without Iron Man in the MCU, they might not have had that competition to step up and make better films because the DCU was lacking behind in terms of superhero films. And according to The Week, which is a website I found while doing research, it's since Iron Man's premiere, Disney and Marvel Studios have raked in a worldwide gross well over $13 billion across the 19 movies, and that's not including the last three movies, which was like Infinity War and Endgame. Without this film, there may never be a superhero franchise that could create such a bang. Because if they mess this film up, then MCU's name may have just been tarnished. So, like back in the day when Green Lantern came out, the movie did so bad and kind of tarnished the name of DC. But Iron Man was a great success. I think they made an extra $300 million over their budget, which was pretty good for the start of a franchise. So I would say that this film was pretty important, especially the eyes of the MCU. I would say it was, well made in the terms of, I guess, an early superhero film being made in 2008. They also got the cast perfectly, I would say, for the film. I mean, Robert Downey Jr. and Nick Fury played their roles like probably the best that they could have ever picked. And I don't know if there could have been anyone that they could have picked to make it even better. I said their ability to create a storyline of a selfish, money-hungry man becoming a hero and saving lives was amazing and made the movie that much better. And also going back and just seeing how Robert Downey Jr.'s life was before the MCU and the Iron Man films, makes his role as Iron Man even better because Robert Downey Jr. was a selfish man and did lots of drugs and got stuck in the Hollywood scene, which could have ruined his life. But I believe that these Iron Man films and MCU films really like stepped him out of that hole. Its advances in the cinema art, I would say it was the start to the world of superheroes that quickly took over cinema because it was the start of the MCU, which the MCU is the highest grossing franchise over even Star Wars. It made more money than Star Wars with all the MCU films. Yeah, granted there are more, but Star Wars was huge and the MCU took over that role as becoming the number one highest like series. Without this first Iron Man movie, there may not have ever been the MCU, and there may not have been a franchise that's made around $13 billion or more dollars. Which I said that before, but I mean that's kind of crazy to think that this Iron Man movie was kind of the pinnacle and the start of what is seen as this huge franchise being MCU. It also helped jumpstart people's minds into the world of superheroes, and more specifically the MCU. I know in my life, I personally didn't understand or really care about superheroes until this movie came out, and I saw it, which then also in return made me love Iron Man, and Iron Man is my, I guess, favorite superhero when it comes to like the MCU. Technology is significant. In the eyes of the technology that changed the film industry, Iron Man was just possibly the first film to have a superhero doing all these flybys and blowing things up and look good. But I mean, there might have been others, but I would say that this one was probably the best form of doing it. On the other hand, though, in the movie they go deep on technology since Iron Man is an inventor, and this whole suit is something that people in real life have been working to create ever since the movies have come out. I've seen countless videos of people trying to create jetpacks and like gun things that come out of their arm and stuff like that just to, you know, be like Iron Man, I would say. There's the technology he uses in it kind of goes in depth with it, and it's technology that like even Elon Musk and I'm sure many of the other inventors are trying to create today. It was enjoyable because it had a great storyline and showed a start to what is known now as the Avengers and how big the Avengers are. It showed Robert Downey Jr. and he was just an inventor, become a superhero after being kidnapped. He was stuck in a cave and had to use all the supplies that he was given in that cave to create his first suit. And then you could see him just progress from there, just building better things and becoming like some would say a hero. He saved people and did his best to, like, I guess, save the people around him. And I guess that's kind of a cool start to a series, is seeing how he went from a struggle to becoming what he is. And just like in every MCU movie, there is a big fight scene, but this one is just interesting because it's one of those movies where it seems more realistic compared to the other superhero movies, because it's a man who invented what he had. He wasn't given he wasn't bit by a spider and given webs. He built his suit. He did this. He did that, and like shows the process of that, which I think that makes it a little bit more interesting, because although it is unrealistic, I would say it is more realistic comparatively to the other movies. And like I said before, though, it was just nice seeing that Robert Downey Jr. being the best person who could have played Iron Man. Like, hands down, he knew exactly what he was doing. Aesthetic, although the film is fairly old, being made in 2008, it has great scenes of Iron Man flying around and just like blowing things up. And there's a great scene about it that I said on the third bullet point, where he shoots rockets at a tank and then he just like starts to walk away from it, and as he's walking away, it just blows up. And to me, that just, back in the day, used to be one of the coolest scenes to see, was just him walking away, acting like he just did not care, and it just blows up. Like, it's so cool. And it also is like first movie in the MCU, obviously, to provide a sort of significance and impact in terms of his action and acting, because, like I said, it was the start of everything. And without him doing his building and him talking to Nick Fury to talk about like creating the stuff, like, or the MCU and all like the heroes and the Avengers, then it just would not be how the MCU would not be how it is today. And it was all around. I thought it's a great movie because it came to its explosions and showing off of a superhero's abilities, some would say, but in reality, it's just his ability to create armor and his ability to just be like a inventor. I think it sets the stage for later films. It definitely set the stage for the later films in its respective universe, being the MCU, because it was the start of it, and every other film just built on after that. And I would say Iron Man was the first of all the superheroes introduced into the MCU, and then they were able to build upon that until they made a masterpiece of a series, which we all know today as like ending with Endgame and being just this big like impact. And I would say the character itself of Iron Man in the film was also very iconic, because he then, after this film, was put into most of the other MCU movies, making him one of, if not like the most seen superheroes in the MCU. Because I remember he's been in like multiple Captain Americas, multiple Thors, the Black Panthers, like Spider-Mans. He's in all the Avengers. He's in so many of these films when, yeah, the other characters are in the other films, but they aren't in it as much as Iron Man is. In genre specific, I'd say in the age of the superhero genre of film, the MCU is the top of the field, and there's no argument about it. But without Iron Man, that story of the MCU may never have even happened. And I would say that the work that went into the Iron Man film is also a sight to see in the superhero world. I read online that Iron Man has been in development since around 1990, when the rights were initially held by Universal, which then they sold the rights to 20th Century Fox, who then sold them to New Line Cinema, claiming that they had too many superhero movies in development and that we can't make them all. Which I bet that 20th Century Fox or New Line Cinema and all these places they're just kicking themselves in the foot right now, just so angry that they didn't actually pick this up and run with it because of the amount of money that they could have made off of these films. And here are my works cited, and thank you.